Bitcoin price continuing to consolidate, leaving all markets guessing. Is price going up? Is it going down? We're going to talk about that in this video, but I also want to zoom out. I want to look at some on-chain metrics, the data, fundamentals. There's one story being written right now within Bitcoin, and that story is very bullish. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Crypto Capital Venture. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn the notification bells on for the very best Bitcoin technical analysis. I do videos pretty much every day. This is the hourly chart. We're going to dig in. We're going to look at the technical analysis. We're going to talk about short-term price. I know we're all watching it. We really are. We're waiting for that breakout to the upside or downside. Before we do, I want to talk about something. The data, on-chain metrics, a lot of different data points, data sets that talk about this. This one in particular, the adjusted spent outputs profit ratio, or the ASOPR, has reset below 1 for the first time this bull market, hitting a value of 0.988. Long story short, this data suggests basically confidence and hodling strength remains for long-term hodlers. So why is that coming down though? And this is also what the data suggests. This relatively steep ASOPR reset may be our first on-chain indicator of panic selling by new entrants. The previous dip from 42K never quite reset to 1 due to strong buy support. And there still is seemingly a lot of strong buy support, but the data really is suggesting panic selling, or at least profit taking by new crypto investors. But hodlers, holders, whatever you want to call them, they're holding and accumulating. And here's the chart. If you just look at it, finally coming back down, this orange line to 0 for the first time in this bull market. And what's really notable about this is, and I should say coming down to 1, not 0. What's notable about this is the fact that right now, if you compare it to the last bull market, and you can see it back here, and kind of if we're trying to compare where we are, this is kind of where we are this cycle, right around June, July of last bull market. And you can just see it consolidates to that area over and over again, and another time in September before that ultimate all-time high. So this type of consolidation, this cooling off from this data set, it's finally happening for the first time this bull market. And if we actually zoom in, you can kind of zoom into a 2-week, and you can just see real quick Bitcoin coming back down below this 1 area, and then now we're kind of bouncing off that area. Now, this is important because if you compare these metrics with what's actually happening right now, Bitcoin at a tipping point could become currency of choice for global trade, Citibank. CBOE files to list what could be US's first Bitcoin ETF. Goldman Sachs restarts cryptocurrency desk amid Bitcoin boom. And the headlines go on. This is just an illustration. When you compare and you look at all of the fundamentals, the adoption of Bitcoin right now on a global level, and then you look at these key metrics and you look at Bitcoin cooling off, and then you see the dips being bought up like crazy. And here's Michael Saylor. Just yesterday, MicroStrategy has purchased an additional 328 Bitcoins for $15 million in cash at an average price of $45,000. Now, that's this last dip, MicroStrategy buying, and probably not the only one accumulating Bitcoin in these dips. And so here we are on the charts looking at the weekly, and Bitcoin just with a really nice consolidation happening right now. And again, looking at this area on the charts, last bull cycle, this is kind of very similar area, Bitcoin consolidating even steeper that time around. So there could be continued downside into the 30,000s. There's a lot of data that suggests that that's possible. But the question is, will the dip be bought up too fast? I mean, there is a lot more demand than there was back here. That is for sure. So we're going to continue analyzing that, but it's extremely important to keep in mind the data, the metrics, the importance of Bitcoin cooling off. And then you can actually see on the momentum on the RSI, Bitcoin actually fell out of overbought territory for the first time in this bull market. And that is huge. We're getting a little bit of a bounce. We can call it phase 2. We had the one dip in the bull market. We have another dip going into phase 2 potentially for Bitcoin. And you can see how many phases were back in the last bull market. So we are on pace. The consolidation is important. We just have to be a little bit patient when we start zooming in on the charts. So let's zoom in on the charts right now and talk about what is going on. Here's a clip from yesterday, real quick. On the hourly chart today, we really want to just watch and see how Bitcoin interacts with this entire area, which is right around 50,131 to right around 48,615, give or take. So that's the area Bitcoin is. So how did Bitcoin interact with that area? Well, here it is. There's that green channel you see on the screen, and Bitcoin interacted perfectly. It's interacting perfectly with the channel. The 786 line right at that resistance that we talked about, 50,100. I mean, just look at that. Look at that perfect wick up into resistance. Bitcoin failed, not surprisingly. It happens so often at the 786 lines down to the 786. And Bitcoin just really right now, as I do this video, interacting. I wanted to try and get a Bitcoin video out early today so that potentially tonight we'll get some answers if Bitcoin makes a move, and I can do another update video later. But right now, as Bitcoin just really grapples with this resistance area, it's setting up kind of a formation of sorts and a potential ascending triangle with a breakout target just below $52,000. That could be an extremely important move for Bitcoin. That is the last swing high area for Bitcoin of this just falling trend line that you see here in this falling wedge. So we're going to have to track this. Bitcoin right now just in the middle of this. But what I want to talk about, if we're discussing the Fibonacci resistance areas, because this is really a story of Bitcoin bulls needing to break key resistance. And if we look at Bitcoin, we zoom out on the hourly, we know this entire move back in, we know this entire move back in January. So similar to what's occurring right now in the Bitcoin charts, but kind of on a larger scale. Bitcoin just telling this story quicker. You can see Bitcoin just doing very similar things. And that's what I want to talk about, the similarities. So if we zoom in on that move from January, there were two resistance areas Bitcoin had to break that we used for us to get these confirmations. Number one is this swing high of this falling wedge to that swing low. Can chart that Fibonacci resistance. And then number two is this second swing high to swing low. And you can see two really just key areas of resistance that Bitcoin really struggled with for brief moments to break, right? And so I want to go to our chart now, and obviously Bitcoin ultimately broke those areas. I want to go to the chart now and look at the same exact one. So we already have this one charted, which is the Bitcoin swing high, this shorter time frame swing high to swing low. But I also want to chart this original swing high of the falling wedge to swing low. And we have this higher resistance. So this is where we are in terms of this playing out comparatively to the last falling wedge in January. Bitcoin, it took some time and it took some grappling with all that resistance. But what we see Bitcoin doing back then, off of this bounce, off of this falling trend line of the falling wedge, Bitcoin just put in higher highs and higher lows. And that's kind of what we want to see right now if we're looking at the hourly chart. We want to see, we get the break right through this trend line, this green trend line right here. We get the break. And even if we see resistance here, and we talked about this in yesterday's video, we get a revisit into the 46,000s to this trend line. That's okay. We get a bounce. We want to start seeing the higher highs and higher lows. And this is kind of what we're tracking right now on the very short term. Now, maybe we don't get that throwback to this trend line. I just want to throw this out there, and I said it in yesterday's video. If it happens, look for support, but at the same time, don't panic immediately, because it happens so often. And actually, you can even see Bitcoin actually made the break through that trend line in January and just dipped all the way back down. And that was a big dip. That was an explosive move outside of that trend line, but it came all the way back down. So keep in mind that that can happen. But right now, if we zoom in on these charts, we're at a really interesting area because we're going to get the move either way. The breakout target to the upside right now in the short term is that $52,000 area just below it. To the downside, target to the downside is that trend line right here. So is Bitcoin going to make a move to that trend line, or are we going to get the break for a higher high into the next key area of resistance? And this is that big area of resistance. Right now, 52,500 or so, down to the 618 line, 50,500. So if Bitcoin can make a move outside of this ascending triangle, we'd be breaking into that resistance area. And that's probably the most bullish thing that Bitcoin could do today. So that's what I'll be keeping an eye on. But at the same time, if Bitcoin actually trickles down and moves to the downside and we get a dip, it's not something that's going to automatically, freak me out or worry me. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of buyers down there in that 5% dip range into the $46,000 to $45,000 area. It seems like there's a lot of accumulation happening down in that area. You can see Michael Saylor buying $15 million worth for $45,710 just the other day. So that's what we're watching on the short-term charts. But always remember, everybody, zoom out on the charts. See what is ultimately happening right now. Right now, we're in a cooling off. The metrics suggest that. The charts suggest that. It's extremely harmonious with previous cycles, and we're right on track. That's what I'm looking at. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe, hit that like. I'll see you all in the next video. God bless.